Good morning, everyone. This is your favorite radio host, your only radio host, Corinne Lafont, on Between the Lines, broadcasting to you from Trinidad and Tobago, the lovely island in the Caribbean. And it's a beautiful day out here today. I mean, it's within the rainy season, hurricane time. But, I appreciate both rain and sun, and I'm just thankful to be here another day. My purpose is not over, and I'm constantly improving on myself, and by improving on myself, I'm doing that, of course, through my radio show as well to help improve you. And I have with me today Lauren McLaughlin. And let me tell you a bit about Lauren so that we can get straight into it. So Lauren is a former talk show host like myself, but I'm not former yet, for Unity, Unity.fm, and an author of 2 books with spiritual themes. Her first book, published in 2010, is titled Go to ELF, ELF, Connecting with the Eternal Life Force. And her latest book, just published, is The Handbook of Spiritual Tools, Reaching Beyond the Challenge to Find the Solution. The primary message conveyed to the readers of both of Lauren's books is the same comforting truth. Life doesn't have to be so hard, and that's the topic of what we're talking about today. Life doesn't have to be so hard. I haven't heard that in a while. Life doesn't have to be so hard. And welcome, Lauren, to Between the Lines.
Thank you, Corinne. Glad to be here.
It's great to have you. So, Lauren, I mean, life doesn't have to be so hard. Let's start with what do you mean by that?
Well, it only took me 7+ decades to figure that out, but a lot of time working with making life as difficult for myself as possible. But what I really mean is that when you connect to the spiritual energy within you, whatever you call it, you can find the guidance you want quite easily. You have to be open to it. You have to trust it. But once you get the habit of doing that, and I don't care how much you live in, you get into a crisis or a busy time or an overtired time, and you forget. So my books are to remind you, the elf is the elf in yourself, letting you know that 3/4 of you is the eternal life force, and 1/4 of you is the part you see in the mirror.
Oh,
So
nice.
if you look into yourself, you will find the elf, and the elf will show you the way if you remember to ask.
Well, let's dig deeper into that, because I do believe that we are spiritual beings, and that what we see in the mirror is just a borrowed shell, so that persons can have something tangible on the face of this earth.
And so we can recognize each other.
Yeah, right? In some way or form. But some of us, we recognize each other spiritually. There are people who have come up to me and say, I know you. And I feel the same about them, some of them, not all. And it's like they're looking at me deep, and I would say, we know each other on a different level. We haven't met, because when we try to figure out how we have met or where we just couldn't figure out how our paths would have crossed. So I just let it go and say, we may have met on a different level. I don't know if there's anything else besides that when that happens. Are you familiar with those situations, and what do you?
Yeah, a soul connection that you feel right away, like you've known this person for eons, even though you apparently are just meeting them for the first time. The other indication to me that we're so connected is that I think we came on with a group of people deliberately to support each other while we're here. And I'm sure you know people that you connect with, and then they disappear for a few years, and they come back into your life, and then you bump into them again, and then they appear another time. It's sort of like they touch base to see how are you doing. And that's happened to me many times with many different people, so that I know that I have a team, a tribe, a posse, whatever the current vernacular is to describe those souls that are around you all the time. And some of them, even after they depart, come back in to give me some kind of guidance.
Okay. So life doesn't have to be so hard. How do we use the knowledge of our spiritual elf, eternal life force, to be
Well,
able to help us to not make life so hard.
right. Well, the Elf book, the first book is a novel about two young men who two men in their 40s who met when they were teenagers because they grew up in each grew up in a dysfunctional family. One had a dysfunctional mother and the other dysfunctional father. They ran into each other and they were the only two people they could invite home because they understood the situation, why one parent was so volatile. So they maintained their relationship for many years. And when they reached their 40s, they still knew something was missing, but they had had a spiritual experience that they didn't recognize when they were boys. And it comes back into their life at 40. I'm now writing the sequel to it. In that book, they're 40 to 50. The book I'm writing now, they're 50 to 60. There'll be a third one where they're 60 to 70, and the evolution of their spiritual growth with the help of the elf in that time.
Mm-hmm.
The new book, The Handbook of Spiritual Tools, I wrote because it's very small. It's not a very big book at all. This is the size of it.
Right.
It literally is a handbook, and it describes my introduction to each of these 10 tools. And it gives a formula so that if you reach the end of your rope, so to speak, my theory is that God will always give you more rope if you ask. and what I suggest you do in this book is that whatever your situation is, you do physically everything you can do about it. But when you get to the point where there's just nothing more you can do, then set the whole problem in the middle of a large piece of cloth in your mind, bundle it up and tie it tight and hand it to the universe. And then turn your attention to the 10 tools. And the 10 tools are simple things that we all know how to do. They're gratitude and kindness and compassion and forgiveness and trust and imagination, things like that. And each one tells a little story of how I found that out and then how other people can use it.
Forgiveness, is the hardest thing for people to do. Forgiving yourself for the errors, for the things you realize that you picked up on, but you still went in anyway. How do we deal with that to forgive ourselves?
Well, forgiveness is the best form of self-love. And the best way to deal with it is to understand what it is. As you've heard many times, it has nothing to do with letting somebody off the hook for some nasty thing they did or unkind or even cruel thing they did. They're still going to have their experience and deal with the results of that act. And whether you forgive them or not isn't going to make a bit of difference to that. That's going to unfold. On the other hand, while you're sitting around feeling nasty thoughts about those people, they're out playing golf and going to the movies and going to the circus, and they're not paying any attention to you at all. So the only person you're punishing is yourself. And when you realize that that's the case, then it's kind of like, well, that's silly. Why don't I just stop doing that? And so there are tools for forgiveness, things like writing it all down and then burning it.
Yeah.
Letting all that energy go up into the universe in flames to be returned as positive energy. But basically, it's allowing yourself to understand that the only person you're hurting when you hold a grudge is yourself.
Wow. Now, you said it took you just only 7 decades to get to that point. We don't want to wait like you for 7 decades.
No. No.
It's okay, even if 7 decades has meet us, and that's where we learn it. At least at some point we learn it. But for those who are below 7 decades, share with us why it took you so long to learn that, and on the continuum of that 7 decades, what have you picked up along the way? I mean, to make you become more aware, more conscious of what was happening, and that you needed to do something about it.
Well, I had a very privileged childhood. My life up to about 20 was about as cushy as anybody's life can be. Mm-hmm. And it was adulthood that came as a huge surprise to me. I mean, Daddy couldn't fix it anymore, and I did some things that were not necessarily in my best interest. So I spent the early years just sort of putting out fires. Whatever came up, that's what I dealt with. I abandoned any attention to God, or other than the little girl, God, please don't let me do whatever I'm going to do. But I didn't have any deep understanding of that I was a spiritual being. None. And somewhere, I remember driving along one day and hearing someone on the radio say, what if you actually were given all of the same powers that God has in a limited form, so that you really are a little God? And I turned that blasphemous thing off as if it was just, what in the world was this person talking about? But a mind once opened can never slam shut again.
I know.
And somehow information kept coming to me and coming to me. I had a friend who had a metaphysical teacher. I went to some classes with that person. She said some things to me that I thought were just crazy. She said, you're here for a reason. You're going to be a great teacher. You're going to be talking to audiences of thousands of people. And I thought, this lady is delusional. She doesn't know me. I'm not going to be doing any of that. But I did wind up doing those things. And so I think if, as I say, once you begin to have a glimpse that God is interested in you on an individual basis, if you are interested in learning and opening, then information just flows in until you can't ignore it anymore.
Yeah.
And I finally attended a Unity church. I thought those people came from the land of Winnie the Pooh. I couldn't understand why they would think everything was good and there wasn't any evil in the world. Eventually, I embraced their philosophy and became a Unity minister. So my life evolved, and it did take 7 decades for me, but I'm a little thick-headed. I think other people are not quite so dense. And I've written all these materials to try to make it easier for those that have even opened to the idea.
Life doesn't have to be so hard. Why, when we talk about it so hard, what are some of the situations when we say so hard? When somebody say life doesn't have to be so hard, what was the so hard for you? And what do you think are some of the so hard for people?
Well, I think they try to solve their problems at the human level, which without opening to new possibilities. For instance, I'm now 78 years old. I deal with retired people all the time, and they tell me, well, I can't do this because I'm on a fixed income. And I can't do this because I only have this much coming in. And I didn't work enough, or I didn't have enough education, or I didn't have a good enough job to have a large enough retirement program. And I tell them that if you're on a fixed income, you're the one who's fixing it. There are ways for you to understand that it is a generous universe, and there are all kinds of opportunities to you. And my favorite story was about a student of mine who was in her 80s, who really was scraping together enough, almost eating cat food. And she took a class from me, and so she decided, well, maybe there was something she could do even at her age to earn money. I'm amused at the commercial that's running right now where the woman is afraid at 70 she'll be wearing a hot dog suit. None of us wants to reach the hot dog suit stage. So she went to the cemetery, it's a true story, to put some flowers on her ex-husband's grave. And there was another woman there visiting from out of town, and she said, do you always put flowers on graves? And she said, well, I grow them in my backyard, and I bring them to him and to my mother and a few other people. And we said, well, I would be glad to pay you. I'm from out of town. I'd be glad to pay you $5 a week if you would just put a few flowers on my mother's grave. So she did, and pretty soon somebody there saw her doing it and asked, and pretty soon she was earning $5 for about 5 or 6 people.
Nice.
And about that time, a company in the neighborhood that she was in, who was being accused by the United States government of polluting the land around them by releasing chemicals, suddenly had to buy out every property at a very nice price. And so her house came up for sale, and the company bought it, and she bought a much nicer house and a new car, all because she opened up to spirit to say, I'm not doing this myself. I'm not on a fixed income. If I turn to you, you will show me ways to live better. And she was such an example of how she certainly could never have seen that her house was going to sell to anybody. It was in terrible condition in a poor neighborhood. She didn't think she is growing flowers in her backyard in Missouri. Now you can only do that in the summertime, so she had a limited window, but she took advantage of it. So that, and I could tell you story upon story of other students I've had who have the same opportunities come to them when they finally said, look, I can't do this by myself. God, show me how.
Yeah. So you're saying open yourself, welcome it, don't think negatively, submit. It requires a sort of vulnerability and submission of realizing you can't do it alone. Do it yourself.
I like the word allowing. I prefer the word allowing.
Yes, I love that too. Allowing, yes.
If you allow spirit to guide you, this spirit that nobody can see it, nobody can touch it, nobody can feel it. You just have to believe it. And it isn't easy. So just practice. Just try it. What could it possibly harm if you said it to the blank space? I always tell people, if you don't believe in God, that's fine. But something is breathing you. Something is pumping your blood. Something is making the sun set every day. Not that the sun actually sets, but making the earth turn. Something is keeping the planets from colliding. So whatever you call it George or Pete or Alice or anything you want, but allow it to, in its infinite size and wisdom and energy, to infuse you with new opportunities, or at least awaken to new opportunities.
Wow. I understand where you're coming from, and I love the word allowing. But in allowing, we have to also be careful what we allow in as well.
You can't abandon all decision making, but you can certainly give yourself the opportunity to take advantage of new opportunities.
Yeah. And we sense them. I think we are such beings that we sense them, and we are warned when certain things come to us that are not from a good place, and from those things that feel good, that resonate, we feel a sense of peace, but yet we ignore. How can we strengthen ourselves to be able to follow that feeling or sensation or instinct or intuition that leads us in the right direction?
Well, if that seems frou-frou, seems like it's just nonsense, then try doing a little research. If you Google psychological studies on gratitude, for instance, you will find studies by the major universities, the major hospitals, the major all kinds of institutions that you and at your human level can trust, that will tell you that they have run experiments of people who deliberately became consciously grateful for the opportunities they had been given in life and the many things around them that they enjoy every day and take for granted. And as soon as they did, everything got better. They slept better. They were healthier. They did better in their job. Their relationships improved, because gratitude it elevates your mood. And when you're in a better mood, then life seems happier, and more happiness and more good stuff comes to you. The same thing happens with kindness. When you perform a kind act, literally a chemical change takes place in your brain. There are 3 or 4 different kinds of chemicals that are generated. Those same chemicals come forth in the person to whom you are being kind. And they're also generated with anyone who observes the kindness. So it's a win-win-win. You hold the door open for somebody, it makes you feel better, it makes them feel better, and the next person says, gee, I should hold the door open for the person behind me. So it's a way, that's what these spiritual tools are. When you give your problem over to the universe and say, I've done everything humanly that I know how to do, I'm now trusting you to show me a new way. And instead of focusing back on the problem or what's wrong, I'm going to use these tools and do good things in the world for myself and other people. And as I do, you will speak to me, the universe will speak to me with the solution. And it works every time. It's not if, it's just, if you do it, it will work. The trick is if you do it.
Yeah, yeah. And do you need to be consistent? Is it something that there's a formula to say you do it morning and night, you do it every day? What?
It should be very spontaneous. I mean, if you open to kindness, you'll see 40 different ways to be kind in a few minutes. I was following a man into Starbucks the other day, quite a guy. He just walked through the parking lot picking up trash. When he got in, he threw it in the wastebasket, went to the restroom and washed his hands and ordered his coffee. He beautified the neighborhood while he was walking in. And I thought, wow, what a guy. I'm sure he also cleans the sink in the restroom after he uses it. There are millions of things you can do to make the world better for yourself and other people, but you have to be awake. So the one thing you have to do is awaken yourself. And in your humanness, you will go right back to sleep. And the next time you think of it, wake up again.
Yeah.
The more you get the habit of it, the more you find it's fun. People think better of you. You think better of yourself. You feel better. There are all kinds of reasons to. And all the tools are not the same. As you said, forgiveness takes a little doing. You have to. The story I tell in the book is that I was new to religion, coming back to religion. I heard the story of Jesus telling people that you had to forgive 70 times 7. And I took it very literally, and I had just broken up in a relationship that was awful. And I said, I'm going to do this. So I got out a legal pad and pens, and I sat down and prepared to write 470 times. I forgive so-and-so for such and such. Well, after I got to about 100, my hand hurt, I was tired, I was bored, and I thought, why don't I just forgive him and get it over with? And so I realized the futility of 490 repetitions. I didn't need that many, but I did need the first 100 to wake up.
Yeah. And probably that's why he probably said 70 times 7, because you will reach a point where you're like, what? No. Some people reach 200. Some people
really not fun.
Yeah. You reach 100 and you realize, hold on. I mean, I've been writing. It comes like detention, where they give you this line to write constantly for the evening after class, and you learn your lesson after that. By writing it out. But in writing it out is also very therapeutic for you, because you're repeating it over and over and over and over in yourself. That after a while it becomes a sort of a habit. It's ingrained.
But you can see what a practical human space I was in to even decide to do something like that. I certainly wasn't over on the spiritual side of my life or open to it in any way until I did enough of struggling to say, this doesn't have to be this hard. This is too hard. I don't want to do it this way. I'm going to come over. And it's like if you took a trip and you didn't use a map, you would be all over the place. But if you use the map, you can go pretty much directly where you want to go. God is your GPS, God's positioning system.
Yeah.
It'll take you where you want to go in a minute.
I like that. I love that. Continue what you were saying.
It'll take you there in a minute. An intention, if you make a strong intention that I intend to increase my income by 10% every 6 months, that intention, when you make it with real care and intention to complete it, is like a laser beam. It takes you right to the end of the result. It doesn't follow the steps. It goes right there. It's already done, so to speak. So then if you keep repeating that intention, you go on a nice, easy trek right to where you want to go.
Beautiful. Some people might be you know, when they listen to this and they were like, I've done that. I've said these things. I believe in it. You know, I've repeated things. I've written it out how many times and nothing has changed.
Yeah, but then 5 minutes after they say that, they're broke. I can't afford this. I can't do that. You know, they undo what they just did. You can't go backward and forward at the same time. You can't drive the car with the gas and the brake on at the same time. Because you allow the negative thinking to come back in, it then negates the positive thinking. You have to, that's the reason for turning to the tools. It takes your mind off of the intention you just set, now that you've set it and made it clear. In the ELF, he has a formula called the ABC formula: ask, believe, collect. You have to ask directly for what you want. You have to believe the universe is going to provide it, and then you have to be prepared to collect it. But between the believing and the collecting, you better keep yourself busy doing something else, because otherwise you're going to keep looking. The more you keep looking to see if it's happened yet, the longer it takes to happen. The little example the guy in the book uses is his cat. The cat's hungry. He goes in to feed the cat, and the cat whines around his legs and just interrupts him everywhere he wants to go, and won't let him get to the food, won't let him get to the refrigerator, won't let him get to the bowl. We do that to God all the time. We ask God for food, and then we do all kinds of ways to get in the way. So it's a very clear example. If you've ever had a cat, they make it as difficult to give them what they want as possible. And that's what we do to the spirit.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be so hard. Get out of the way.
Get out of the way. Yeah. And you know that is difficult as a human to do. Get out of your own way.
But so if you can't not do something, but you can do something else, then use your spiritual tools.
Yeah.
Be busy being grateful. You know, if you think about the army, do you know armies of people are working for you every day, and you never see them. If you walk over and turn on a light switch and the room lights up, how many people had to go to work that day so that switch would work?
Yeah.
You know, when you go out on the road to drive, how many people are responsible for you having a safe road to drive on, with traffic lights and lines in the middle and tar and no potholes and thousands of things? That you have all sorts of people making your path smooth every day.
Yeah.
And if you start to acknowledge them, then suddenly you realize many, many, many more reasons to be grateful.
Yeah, absolutely. Remind me of your website again, Lauren. I want to bring it up and share it here.
It is the handbookofspiritualtools.com.
I hope I can spell.
And the book is available, the Handbook of Spiritual Tools is available on Kindle. On Amazon. The Kindle version is only $5.99. The book is only $10.99. So just about anybody can afford it.
Beautiful site. I love the colors. It's quite calming. I love the little girl there. Oh, yeah. Surrounded by nature, fish.
Just using our tools.
Yes. I love it. It's pretty cute.
Thank you.
Cute. Yes. So if you were to get the book here, and you have the different spiritual tools that you can get into.
Right. In fact, the tools are free and they're all described here. The book is a little more interesting, but you can learn about each one of the tools on the website.
I love that. This is really cool. Thank you, God. What's next?
Well, that's the theme of that book, that once you achieve what you want, you really need to get on to your next passion.
Yeah. Thank you, God. What's next? All right. So getting access to the spiritual tools are here. How do we just get the book? Let me see if I scroll down.
I'm sorry?
I'm trying to see where I can click to get access to pay for the book.
Oh, hit the spiritual tools at the top, and there's a drop-down menu. So if you hit forgiveness now or trust, you'll come on another page. See?
Yeah, that's what I did. Oh, you mean, it's on each one of these. Okay.
Each one has its own page.
Yeah. Okay.
Tells you something about the tool and then some exercises to make it happen.
Nice. Okay. And
so take you into the blog. The blog also has all of the tools.
Right, right. Wonderful.
And you can purchase it here on this site if you want to as well.
Right, which is what I was trying to get to. So I can click here or click here.
Click add to the cart, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Beautiful, beautiful. This is great. And of course, persons can subscribe to your newsletter here and get more from you.
The newsletter also sends out 3 different tools a month and how to use them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Beautiful. And they can contact you on the contact us page here as well. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Lauren McLaughlin.
You're welcome. Nice to meet you.
Yes, I appreciate. Let me get you back here on the screen. Yay. I appreciate the time you spent with me this morning. Just, confirmation of going back to basics. Everything is going back to basics, Lauren. No matter what's happening in the world, what's happening with you. We have to
remember the 3/4 of yourself is the elf, the eternal life.
Yeah. Going back to basics and really just being still with all the hustle, the bustle, the noise, that's happening around you, all the things you have to do, the busyness of being busy, that we just need to be still and go right back to the source. Whatever, as you say, you want to call it, George, Pete, whatever, Sharon, Suzanne, whatever, God, it doesn't matter. That's your relationship with him or her, that higher being that is allowing you to breathe, exist, be around for whatever reason. Yeah.
It's very generous, the universe is.
Yes, yes.
When will this interview air, Corinne?
It's going to air right after I'm finished recording. I'm going to send the recording to you, so it's going to be on my YouTube channel right after. So
wonderful.
Yeah, so I will share it with you. So thank you so much, Lauren McLaughlin. It's been a pleasure.
Have a lovely day.
You too.